Hello and welcome to yet another video on Warhammer 3 and also yet another video on a Siege rework. Now you may be wondering why am I making this video so soon after I made the previous Siege rework prediction. This is because I have some actual ideas directly from the horse's mouth, as it were. We had an interview session with the devs after we played Warhammer 3, and some of their answers to some of the questions that we asked really gave me some good ideas as to how I actually believe that the Siege and Minor Settlement rework is coming in Warhammer 3. So with all that being said, let's get into the video. So the new buildables in survival battles obviously have some massive influences on how siege battles for both walled and unwalled settlements are going to work. We have multiple kinds of tower that we could place in a variety of locations, as well as barricades we could use to lock down certain areas and force attackers into a choke point. Now naturally you would assume, since we can use these kinds of defenses when we are so very far from home, we can also use them when we are in the homeland. We even have it coming from the devs that changes to sieges are coming, so we know that something is coming to shake things up in a pretty big way. So with all that info combined, we now have a much better idea of what the inbound siege rework is going to be like for Warhammer 3. Now this video is going to outline what I believe is the most likely answer to the question, how are sieges going to change in Total War Warhammer 3? I don't know any of this for a fact, but given what we do know, this is the most solid theory, at least in my head. Now buildable defenses are first up since, it's kind of the most exciting. Now, I for sure think that in both minor and major settlements, we're going to be getting some defenses like the ones we saw here in the survival battles. I doubt it'll work on the same supply system, and it'll maybe be more of a you can place 4 towers wherever you want, so you can build your defenses, well, exactly how you want. Towers may also just be a thing that is auto-placed, but instead of the crappy ones we have now in Warhammer 2, they are the new great ones we saw in Warhammer 3, and the more you upgrade defenses, the better towers they are. This likely means we will see more varieties of towers both with different factions and within the same factions, since upgrading them beyond what we've seen here could indeed be very possible. The barricades are also a clear choice to implement into sieges to block off certain routes or simply buff the units that you have there or trap the enemies that walk in. Again, I think this will likely work on a system where you can only place so many rather than the supplies. Like the towers, I think it would be very possible that we could see all kinds of other barricades, buildings for other factions. So you could have more advanced traps, which would be incredible, perhaps some magical or technological landmines, some magical runes that slow and damage enemies. To be honest, when you've got magic involved and technology from some of the more inventive factions like the Dwarves and the Skaven, the possibilities really are endless. The same could be said for the buffs. Instead of just having the ones that we had now, you could have buffs that are dedicated to some of the different deities in the Warhammer world, or simply that do different things for certain units, so buffs to ranged units, melee units, cavalry, monsters, anything. The possibilities really are endless. Now for the buildables that we didn't see in this battle, because I'm thinking that we are probably due to see a few more than we've seen so far. So smaller towers inside the walls, that's kind of a given, we've seen in 3 Kingdoms, so these would pretty much just be basically the same as the other towers, but maybe just a little bit smaller and a little bit less damage, and range would probably be a good idea. Just so if you're getting shot from the towers with a 360-degree firing arc from outside the walls, then you're also getting fired at by some towers that are inside the walls, you're going to kind of feel like you're in a bit of a close situation. So having them do a little bit less damage would work quite nicely. Now for walls, the ones we have now are skinny and terrible all around, bad systems for getting up and down. We've of course all been complaining about these for years, and I don't know that we're going to get buildable walls per se, because that'd just be like customizing your settlements, so I seriously doubt that that's going to be a thing, but I for sure think that we may get some things to put on the walls that could aid in defending. Now when we asked the devs about mounting siege weaponry on the walls, they really locked up and said they couldn't say anything yet, which either means that it is definitely happening, we just haven't been told about yet and it's coming soon, or it is never going to happen and they don't want to get the hopes up and have us all be disappointed. In the interest of content, I'm going to go with option A and assume that it is happening. That means siege weaponry from all factions could be seen on the walls, so everything from ballistas and catapults to flame cannons and warp lightning cannons could be getting larger wall-mounted options, which would be truly incredible. Now to fit these large weapons on the walls, we're going to need some bigger walls, and while I doubt they would be as large as a siege engine the entire way around, I think it'd be very possible to see these large platforms where the siege engines are, and then the connecting walls are also just a little bit thicker than we have now. Because using the walls that we have now, you can fit about 3 units, man to man across the entire thing, and it's a little bit depressing. So having some nice chunky units up there to be able to meet the enemies when they come out of a tower, rather than some skinny ass lines, would be pretty nice. I also believe that they have to rework the way we get on and off the walls. Everyone's been complaining about it way too long, and they just really need to do something. I think the most sensible option is to bring back the system from Rome 2, where there are distinct stepping on and off points, because it makes the most sense despite the risk of being caught in a big spell. Now, they could place these points as often as they want around the entire wall, have just a few of them, or have a lot of them. Either way, just something so that you don't just walk to the edge of the wall and then teleport to the ground, because that stuff literally makes me want to cry. Now to the maps, both in size and shape and style. Now, with all these changes coming, the map size, it just has to be larger than Warhammer 2. I think seeing some of the ranges that I've seen from the artillery and the ranged units, and of course the towers, I have to assume that we are getting much larger maps in Warhammer 3 overall, and especially in the sieges. Otherwise, one tower would be able to attack literally the whole map. Now, I'm thinking that towers in the Mortal Realm may have less range than the ones we saw here, but they will still fire in a 360-degree arc, so maps just have to be larger. I also believe that the 360-degree towers are a strong indicator of 360-degree sieges because it just makes sense. This also means no more single-walled settlements, so we'll now be seeing some creatively designed settlements with more interesting shapes and layouts than just a rectangle with its back against the cliff. I also believe that minor sieges will be getting actual sieges rather than the field battles we have now. These buildables will allow you to defend a town even without walls, so I absolutely think we'll be seeing some maps like this. The devs were also noticeably sheepish when talking about minor settlements, so I think the likelihood of a major change coming is exceptionally high. So larger maps, more variety of maps, interesting sieges, and minor settlement battles, incredible. Now the final category, siege equipment. Of course, if one side is getting a bunch of things new, then you know the other side has to also get a bunch of things new. So, for the attackers, what do I think that we're going to be getting? I think there are several things that are quite easy to predict. Ladders will now be moved from the Ars Tardis of every unit to a specifically buildable thing in the siege engine menu alongside the others. This means that you can't just immediately attack settlements and use the ladders all units have to mount the walls. You'll instead now have to specifically build them if you want them, and you'll have to place them on specific units rather than all of them. Now, they will serve as the quicker to build towers and will provide some debuffs to vigor because, you know, obviously it's a ladder, it's tiring. Now, the towers will likely take a little bit longer to assemble to account for this, so say it takes 1 turn to make 3 ladders and then it takes 2 turns to make 1 tower. So you can either have one really defensible tower from these massive 360-degree towers, or you can just have a few ladders where you're likely to get shot at. Other than that, I think that the towers will remain pretty much the same, aside from maybe getting some health buffs, since they will probably end up taking a lot more shots from defender towers. Now, battering rams have always seemed useless in Warhammer 2 for nearly every single faction, since you either have monsters to bash through those gates, or if you don't have any monsters, all of your units are infantry, so you can just send them up in towers. So I definitely think that we need to see several changes to make them a lot more applicable. I think making them into actual engines that units can get inside of is the likely direction to go, since it would allow units inside protection from the newly buffed towers, otherwise they would just get annihilated even more than they do now. This also means they are preferable to use over monsters, since you don't really have to sacrifice a unit to get the doors open. They will also maybe need to get some slight speed buffs to at least be as quick as the towers, since right now they are horrifically and offensively slow. And as a final thing, sappers need to be added or I will riot. Remember that scene in Lord of the Rings where the orcs are fighting against the wall and they blast the hole in because some maniac strapped himself with C4 and just exploded and blew up the whole wall? Yeah, can we get that, either as units or siege equipment? Because it's just too much fun, and it's a real shame that we haven't seen it already. That just about wraps everything up on what I believe the siege rework is going to look like now that we have a bit of a better idea. Let me know what you think in the comments, what you think is accurate in this video, what you don't think is accurate. What do you think the sieges are going to look like in Warhammer 3? Let me know. I'm very interested to hear it. Thank you so very much for watching this video. I do appreciate it. If you did enjoy this video at any point, then please do consider leaving it a like. And you know, if you didn't enjoy it, then that dislike button's right there too. If you want to see more videos like this, then be sure to subscribe to the channel. I upload videos every single week, so you don't want to miss a thing. I'd also like to thank all supporters of this channel, in particular Cobra Setso, Nifty Norm. You guys, you know I'm going to keep thanking you. That and Clean Ones tier, I really can't thank you enough. One more big fat thank you for watching, and for now, I've been COLONELDAMNEDERS, and I will see you next turn.